Hey, welcome to Experience Overhype, the podcast. I'm Sin, and if you know me online, you probably know me as Sin Knows UGC. For 18 years, I ran a brick-and-mortar bakery, real customers, real overhead, real goddamn responsibility, okay? Then I stepped into the digital space, and I rebuilt my income through UGC, TikTok Shop, and content monetization full time. This podcast isn't about trends, hacks, overnight success stories, okay? It's about experience, transferable skills, and building income in a way that actually lasts. If you're reinventing yourself, starting from a new chapter, or trying to figure out how to monetize what you already know, you're in the right damn place. Let's get into today's episode, and just know, if you're watching me versus listening to me, I'm in my pajamas right now on purpose. Okay, on purpose, but I had to get this out to you guys today, okay? So let's get into this episode. All right, y'all. So why the hell did I want this podcast to exist? Because y'all see so much on social media, the glitz, the glam, the glitter, all the things that everybody is experiencing right now and in their journey, whatever that may be, you know, as far as them being an entrepreneur, that sometimes we forget to share the ugly side of it. But for me, if y'all know me and y'all been following me for a while, you also know that I share those parts as well. Okay. So that was the whole reason why I wanted to start this podcast. So that way I can really give y'all the context, you know, behind my journey of how I went from being a full-time cake shop owner for 18 years to now full-time as a UGC creator and also TikTok shop. Trust and believe, this shit was not easy. This shit was not easy, okay? But here we are, okay? Here we are. So that's also the reason why I chose the title for this podcast, Experience Over Hype. Okay? Not experience over hype, experience over hype. So that way you're kind of getting my experience of this whole damn transition versus hype versus basing, you know, what you already hearing, you know, what you're hearing online as far as UGC and TikTok shop. So this podcast is really for, if I'm being quite honest, this podcast is really for any woman that's over 35. And the reason why I say that is because we tend to, once we get of that age, we feel like we can't start over. We're literally stuck, you know, where we are. And you're thinking that when you start over, you're starting over from ground zero. And let me just tell you, you're never starting over from ground zero. Because though that experience that you already have in your current position, in your current career, in your current journey as an entrepreneur, that experience, it doesn't go away. Those skills, it doesn't go away. They are literally transferable for you to move them over to the next thing it is that you want to start. So I want, and this podcast is also big on mindset, because for the last year, I had really honed in on learning about the brain. It's a very interesting, organ, you know, in our body. The brain is so damn powerful. So, we're going to get into that a little more later, whether it's this episode or never. Honestly, it's going to be talked about on every episode, but you're never really going to be starting over from zero. Okay. You're going to be starting from experience where you are, because you get to take that, you know, on the next part of your journey with you as well. So I don't want you guys to expect fluff. I don't want you guys to expect hype. I'm going to give, if y'all know me in real life, you know, from me running the cake shop, Cakes by Cynthia in Baltimore, y'all already know I don't hold no goddamn cut cards, okay? I don't hold no damn cut cards. I'm trying to work on, so if you're a person who has sensitive ears, I will tell you now, you don't want to listen to this because I do curse. I'm not apologizing for it, goddammit. I'm not apologizing for it, but I will say working on not to do it as much, okay? I'm not going to say that I'm not going to do it because, yeah, this mouth of mine, unfortunately, it doesn't have a filter. But, yeah, so I just wanted to let you guys know that. So if you kind of have sensitive ears, you know, this might, okay. So let me just tell you guys what running a bakery for 18 years actually looked like for me. It was a lot of long days, a lot of early mornings, a lot of fucking overhead, you know, and money spent, you know, between payroll, inventory, costly mistakes that your employees make that you have to fucking pay for, okay? Because let's be honest, when you're running a business and you have payroll in place, meaning, you have employees, you're responsible for their mistakes, although, you're responsible for their mistakes and it's your money that those mistakes have to pay for. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. So when they make mistakes, you have to pay for that, out of your pocket. I wish it was a way that we was able to take money out of, employees' paychecks, but I don't think that's legal. I don't think that's legal. But yeah, so running a bakery for 18 years, it was a lot of work. It was, me getting up in the morning because my husband, we ran the bakery together. He would get up 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and go into the cake shop and get production started. So that way, by the time I get in, after I get our son up, because we have 5 children, they're all adults except for the last one, which is our son, EJ. He's 10. So, he's still in school. I will get in the shop around 10 a.m. after taking him to school. And by the time I get in, 95% of the time, production was already done, depending on what the hell he was in the shop doing that morning, lollygagging on the goddamn phone, because it was some days I would get in there at 10 o'clock and ain't shit done. What the fuck was you in there doing? But that's another story for another daggone day, okay? But yeah, I would get into the bakery. I would have to set the front retail area up with piping all of the cupcakes. We will go anywhere from 300 to 500 cupcakes a day, depending on, honestly, whether or not it was a holiday or if a post went viral on social media, then we would need more. After I finished the cupcakes, I would then have to pull all of the cake orders to see what orders need to go out, that week. We will have anywhere from 10 to 30 custom cakes that had to be done each and every week. At one point in time, like I said, I did have a staff, I did have employees, but at the end of the day, after a while, I didn't have any employees. And I'm not going to say that I was sad about it. I was very fucking happy about it because I didn't have a payroll to pay any goddamn more. My payroll was literally $19,000 a month. That's how much my payroll was. And the stress that came with that, making sure everybody had their paycheck, every week that was a stress in itself. There were days that I would have to go into the bathroom and I would have to cry, go in my car and cry. Of course, not letting my staff seeing it because I don't want them to see, that I'm falling apart. I'm crying because I'm like, how the hell I'm gonna pay, how are we going to pay payroll this week? You know what I mean? Because especially if the shop is slow, because if it's slow, they still got to fucking get paid. It's been many days, whereas though we paid our staff, the paychecks was never late. Nobody never had a bounce paycheck. It was never no money, to pay the staff. Thank God, because I definitely didn't want that on social media. Yeah, she got us in here working all these fucking hours and I ain't even get a paycheck this week. You know what I mean? So thank God I never had that situation before. But there's been plenty of times where as though we made sure the staff was paid and we would go home to the damn dark, because our lights was turned off. We would make sure the staff was paid and my car had got repoed or Earl's car got repoed because we couldn't afford, both car notes. It was times that the whole staff got paid and we was eating fucking spaghetti for 2 weeks. If you know how cheap spaghetti is, to make. You know what I mean? So that's what it was like, with running our bakery for 18 years. Like I said, yeah, it looked good on social media, but I made it my business to also let people know the ugly side as well, as entrepreneurship. I didn't want people to always see the good things, like when they see me on TV, because I did a lot of TV shows, I did a lot of cake competitions on, on TV. I did I don't even know if I can say the name because I'm on YouTube. I don't even know if I can say the names, but if you guys are familiar with a lot of the different networks where, those cake shows came on, I've done pretty much all of them. I've done a lot of those. Okay. So yeah, it takes a very huge discipline, to run a brick and mortar business. I closed the store in August of 2025. We're now on January 2nd of 2026, a new year. But I closed the shop in August of 2025. Did I break the lease? Absolutely. I did. I did not care. I did not care. We've been in business, for 18 years total, but we was at that because we had previous locations before that. And we also had multiple locations while we were at that location on Washington Boulevard. And we had one more year left for our 10-year lease. And I was trying to get through to that 10 years. I really was. But it got to the point where as though I will never forget this day. It was in June. It got to the point where as though I would come to work and I would pull up on the parking lot and I would sit in my truck and I would just cry because I hated my job. I hated my job. I did not want to go in there anymore. And imagine hating the business that you built. Imagine that. It wasn't a job that I had to go clock in, from someone else. It wasn't that type. I wasn't working for nobody else. I was working for myself. Imagine building a business that you eventually started hating. You know what I mean? Can I say my first love was cake? Yeah, my first love was cake decorating. I've been doing it since high school. I've been doing it since I was 16 years old. I'm now 49. Imagine that, do the math. That's how many years I've been decorating cakes. And it just got to the point where I was like, I don't want to do this shit no more. I would be in the shop and I would be doing, completing people's cake orders or completing the cupcakes that need to go out into the retail area that day. And I would just cry. And my daughter would say, because one of our daughters, she worked in the shop as well, full time. She pretty much just operated the front of the store. She would help in the back also when needed. But it got to the point where my daughter would say, Ma, what's wrong? And I'm like, Demir, I hate my job. I do not want to do this shit no more. I hate it. You know what I mean? And we had so much on Cakes by Cynthia because we didn't just have the retail shop. We have a food truck as well. I still have the food truck. I'm still trying to decide what the hell I want to do with that food truck. So if any of y'all want to buy a food truck, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. It has a brand new transmission in it. So you pretty much got a new damn food truck. But yeah, it wasn't just a brick and mortar store. It was a food truck. We had cupcake vending machines. The cupcake vending machine is still placed where it was. I still have yet to go pick it up because at all costs, it was like I wanted to detach myself from Cakes by Cynthia because it owned a big part of my life. It controlled a big part of my life. So that's what running a bakery was like for 18 years. It was consistency without applause all the time. We will make things, and being in the food industry is hard. We will make products hoping that it will sell, and if it didn't sell by the end of the day, by the time we lock those damn doors, we have to throw that shit away. It was very costly. I really think the economy played, a big part in it. People just don't have expendable income as much no more as they used to. And our custom cakes wasn't cheap. Our prices for I had a $200 minimum, and that was for a small cake. A $200 minimum. That was for a cake that serves about 8 people. That was my minimum, for a custom cake. And so I then thought that if I take away some things on the menu, maybe I'll start falling in love, with the art of cake decorating and baking again. No, it never came. It never came. Okay. So that's literally like real world pressure versus online presence. Like I said, it may look pretty online, but baby, trust and believe, in the real fucking world, that shit is not easy by no means. Okay. It's times also that we didn't have the income coming in. This was after, it was just me, my husband, and my daughter. We no longer had a staff that we had to pay for, thank God. But it was also times where though it was so slow, in the cake shop that it was really no money to buy inventory. Imagine it being slow in a cake shop. You still have to produce inventory every single day. Nobody's coming in buying it like they once used to, and you got to throw all that shit in the trash at the end of the fucking day. Imagine that. And now you don't have any money to restock, which got me in the chokehold with those godforsaken those damn merchant loans. If you ever consider getting those merchant loans, if you're in business, please take my word for it. Don't do it. Do not fucking do it. Those merchant loans is what caused me, I had to file bankruptcy because I had got so deep into those damn merchant loans. Because how they work is they going to give you the money, yeah, but you have to pay it back every day, whether you make a sale or not. They're going to deduct it from your business checking account. That checking account stayed red for so long. That checking account stayed red for so long to the point where as though I had to go I went and open up another goddamn business checking account because they didn't have access to the new one. And I would just transfer all of my deposits over to the new damn checking account so I can at least see a little bit of black, in the damn account instead of keep seeing red, all day, every damn day. But that's what responsibility teaches you. It taught me hustle. It taught me hustle. It taught me sacrificing. It taught me how to not depend on that one thing. And that's what led me to UGC and TikTok Shop. Like I said, I was able to take all of my skills, all of my experiences and take it right over to UGC and TikTok Shop, what a lot of creators don't have. I notice a lot of creators that's doing UGC or TikTok Shop, they never ran a business before a day in their fucking life. So that's what I have that so many creators don't have. I know business. You know what I mean? I have that experience. I have those skills. I have 18 years of it. So I was able to take those skills and that experience and move it over to UGC and TikTok Shop, knowing customer psychology, selling without emotional attachment, consistency regardless of my mood. You know what I mean? Especially consistency regardless of my mood, because I had to show up in that fucking shop whether I wanted to or not. I still had to go in there. I still had to put the key in the door. I still had to unlock it. I still had to wait for these fucking customers to come through the daggone door and spend some goddamn money. So it was like showing up on social media with doing UGC and TikTok Shop. It was literally like, it was easy for me in that regard as far as showing up when I didn't feel like it, because I still had to show up because I've already did it. You know what I mean? Also understanding, buying behavior. A lot of times people, they buy on impulse. Same difference when I had the cake shop. People was buying cupcakes because it was an impulse buy. It was, I need a piece of cake to make me feel better right now. And especially if they having a shitty day. How many of you not knowing, you probably consciously not knowing that when you're having a shitty day or you're having some type of day, you feel like you need something to compensate for that feeling it is that you having at that present moment. I know for me, I try not to be an emotional eater. You have some people that they are emotional eaters. You have some people when they feeling some type of way, they want to go shopping and they call it shopping therapy. That's a bunch of bullshit, but they call it shopping therapy. Yeah, I'm not spending that kind of money because, I'm bored out of my damn mind, or I'm feeling some damn type of way. But, that's all a part of understanding, buying behavior. People buy, psychology. It's the psychology, for selling. People buy feelings. They do not buy products. And that's what some people, they fail to realize. People buy feelings. They don't buy products. They buy things because it make them feel a certain way and make them look a certain way, things of that nature. You know what I mean? So once you can tap into those things, I'm not going to get into Life Force 8. Maybe I'll get into that on another episode. But it's like we're hardwired with those psychology triggers to make us buy. You know what I mean? They also say that it takes somebody 5 to 7 times to see something before they want to act. How many of you have actually made a purchase because of what it made you feel? How many of you have made that impulse purchase because of what it made you feel in that current moment that you had to say, I need this shit and I need it now. Okay. So that's how we purchase. So when the bakery stopped fitting, those days I'm in there crying my eyes out and, don't want to do these daggone cakes. I found myself, and I'm gonna be honest, where as though it was starting to come off a little bit and my customer service was starting to suffer. And I want to apologize to you guys again now, my former customers that I have, if I ever been mean. Not to mention I'm going through perimenopause. But if I ever been mean, it was not you. It definitely was not you. It was me, because the bakery, it wasn't no longer fitting. It wasn't no longer fitting. You know what I mean? And that's just what it is. You know, I was really getting into burnout. But not knowing that burnout was setting me up for my evolution. And I like ghost snacks. Using words. Use your words. That's what I tell my kids. Use your words, okay? But yeah, me not knowing that my burnout was preparing me for my evolution of doing UGC and TikTok shop and being my full self and being my funny, quirky self. Because the bakery, it literally had me feeling like I was stuck. I thought that was my end all be all. I always knew that I wanted to retire at 50. Here it is. My birthday is February the 23rd. I will be 50 and I'm retired from the cake shop, because my dream was to retire from, and I manifested that. I just didn't know how it was going to happen. Like, I always knew that I wanted to retire at 50 years old, but I didn't know how the fuck that was going to happen, because I knew listen, I don't know how the bakery was going to provide that for me, because the bakery has never afforded me the life it is that I wanted to live. It has never afforded me, honestly, it's never afforded me the life that I'm currently living now, with no stress, able to pay my bills without strain, stress, or frustration. For the first time ever in my 49 years, I was able to pay all of my credit card bills off in full at one time. That shit never happened. It never happened. Who would have thought, like, at 49, because of UGC and TikTok. But first and foremost, let's not forget, for God, he just gave me the vehicle of UGC and TikTok for me to make this income, that I'm making now. Again, never in my 49 years, I had a damn credit score of 798. What? 798? Like, how the hell did that happen? You know what I mean? So yeah, that was my journey, from my bakery and how I got into UGC and also TikTok shop. The emotional difficulty of literally outgrowing something that fed my family for so many years. It fed my family for so many years because that's all I knew. That's all I knew. And when I first got my first exposure to income online, when I first got my first exposure to income online and how to make money online, I was doing digital products before in the baking space, but it didn't hit like it's hitting now. And even when I did it, I knew my purpose was to help others and, help others, in the baking community, and this, that, and the third. I knew that, but it still felt like I was forced. Excuse me, my sinuses. So, I still felt like I was forced, to do it. And I still didn't feel a sense of, I love doing this. I love teaching, but the bakery piece is what was my hindrance. But I knew people needed this information, and I knew this information. I was very well experienced in the areas where they needed help at. So I was like, okay, let me put it out anyway, because it's not for me. It's for them. It's not for me. Because at first I was going to be selfish. I'm like, I'm not doing this shit. I'm not doing it. But, I had to remove myself from it and was like, okay, it's for them. It's not for me. I still do it. I still teach. I still, mentor. I still coach, in that space as well. Because like I said, that's an experience that and the skills that I'm never going to lose. But when I first really got my exposure to online income was in September, when I seen people talking about September 2024. Just to give you some context of the year, it was September 2024 when I first got started, and I was always on TikTok. I just wasn't on there consistently. And at the time when I stepped into UGC and TikTok shop, I had already had 20,000 plus, followers, on my page from me doing the baking content and the cake decorating content. So I already had access to, TikTok shop. I just didn't know. I didn't know what the fuck it was. Like, what is this? Like, I see people talking about, selling items on TikTok shop, and I see people promoting products for brands through, UGC, which is user generated content. If you don't know, I seen that and I was like, what is this? So I started doing my research on it on UGC and TikTok shop. And I was like, okay, let me try this and see what this is all about. Let me do this. Child, listen. I got into that shit in September. I did it for 2 weeks. I said, bullshit. No, no, I ain't gonna be able to do it. This is not for me. This is too much. I already got enough going on. These cakes gotta get done. I got a wedding cake that's due this weekend. Yeah, no, no, I ain't gonna be able to do all this editing and, this, that, and the third. But what I was doing was I was overcomplicating it. Because it was something new to me, and it was something that made me uncomfortable. And y'all know as well as I know, when you come across something that makes you uncomfortable, you run far fucking away because you don't want nothing to do with it because it's uncomfortable and it ain't your norm and you ain't doing it. Not realizing that when you are faced against something that's uncomfortable, that's your pivot right there. That's your opportunity right there for you to move. Because in order for God to bless you in that next area of your life, he got to stretch you in the area that you're currently in, which means make you uncomfortable. He got to make you uncomfortable. So I had quit after 2 weeks of doing UGC and TikTok shop. I had quit. So I quit after doing that, and I was like, yeah, no, I ain't going to be able to do it. And still was struggling. Me and my husband both, we were still struggling because that was our income, working in the shop. So then I went back on TikTok and on social media, and I started looking at the videos again, UGC and TikTok. And I was like, all right, let's give this a real shot. Mind you, September, my first month, I made $12 my first month. And I quit. And I went back in October and I was like, okay, son, let's give this shit a real shot and see what actually happens. Okay. Like really give it a real shot and stick with it, and I know once I get intrigued by something, once I get curious, with something, I'm going all in. I'm going way down in a rabbit hole. Okay. So I went way down in a rabbit hole, still not knowing what the hell I was doing. And I found a community. At first, I seen a creator that looked like me. Her name is Andrea. I seen a creator that looked like me. And she was killing it on TikTok. She was killing it on TikTok shop. And I was like, and she had shared in one of her posts I think she shared it on one of her posts, how much she made, or it was once I got inside of her Discord, she shared what she made. And I was like, I know you fucking lying. You made what? You made what on TikTok shop? And it was 5 figures. And I ain't talking about little 5 figures. I'm talking about big 5 figures. Okay. And I was like, wait, hold up. What? You made what? And when she said that, oh baby, listen, I was all in. I wanted to know every goddamn thing it is to know about TikTok shop. UGC, I just took my skills that I had from TikTok shop and again, you're never starting over from zero. I took my skills that I learned from TikTok shop and I applied them to UGC, which is kind of almost like one and the same, but not, you know what I mean? So I was able to do both. And with doing that and with learning, what she taught me and also learning, applying what I was learning on my own, my numbers just kept growing. And in October, I did $35. Still not no damn life-changing money, but it was enough for me to say, okay, it's something there because I knew I was still rough around the edges. I knew it was still, I knew I was still ragged around the daggone edges and still didn't know it all, or knew enough to convert like crazy. On TikTok shop. So that was in October. I did $35. But in November, I made $700. No, I'm sorry. In November, I did $150 in November. December is when I did $700. And I was like, okay. And I was seeing it month over month. It started compounding. I was like, okay, son, like But if I was looking at my videos now that I did back then, oh my God, those videos is trash. They is trash. But they was converting, and I was like, how in the hell did somebody manage to buy something off my link off this video? This video is terrible. It's terrible. But they was buying off of my links. Like, me looking back at those videos now, of the videos that I did when I first got started, is no way in hell I would have brought off of those daggone videos. But honey, listen. It is an audience for every goddamn body. It is an audience for every damn body. It's an audience for every goddamn thing, because everybody received the information, that they need to hear to make that impulse buy. They need to hear it in so many different ways. So don't think it's only one way, to sell. However, you still have to, use that buyer psychology to make them say, I need that now. Because again, remember, we selling feelings. We not selling products. We're selling emotions. Remember that, okay? Remember, you're selling emotions, you're selling feelings, you are not selling products. So yeah, in December, I made $700 and it was just compounding. I'm like, okay, we got something here. It's doing a little something. So January came, I did $3,000. I was like, Sin, bitch, you made what in January? This was me having a conversation with myself, despite what people say, don't talk to yourself. Shit, I talk to myself. But in January, I made $3,000. I was like, I know you fucking lying. I made $3,000 in January. But in February, in February, I did my first 5-figure month. I did $15,000 in February. I was like, what in the entire fuck is happening here? And since February of 2024, I've been making 5 figures a month. Since February 2024, I've been making 5 figures a month between TikTok Shop and UGC. I've been bringing in 5 figures a month. So don't let nobody tell y'all it's no money in UGC. Don't let nobody tell you it's no money in TikTok Shop. You just need direction. That's it. You just need direction. I will say you will struggle if you go into this thing blindly and not knowing, what the hell you is doing, then yeah, you're going to struggle a little bit, especially if you're not around like-minded people that is doing, what you're doing, you're going to struggle. You're just going to struggle. So, I had to watch my patterns. I think that's what helped me the most with converting as much, with me beginning to convert as much as I was noticing patterns. And at first, I was bouncing around from product to product to product, and that's what confused me at first. I was bouncing around from product to product to product. But what I noticed and when it started sticking was, and that's what stood out quickly for me, was when I noticed that I was promoting the same product over and over and over again. That's when it clicked. I was like, Cynthia, why are you trying to recreate the wheel? Make that shit again. And then I seen another creator on TikTok saying the same thing. Just recreate what's already working. And I was like, no way. It's no fucking way that I'm going to be saying the same thing in a different video and be standing in a different area, or maybe have on a different shirt, or maybe have my hair done, a different way, that this shit is going to click and that it's going to convert. I lied to you not. I lied to you not. It clicked. So when that started clicking like that, I started getting even deeper, in UGC, finding the platforms that I needed to find, to make this content for brands. And then when I found out that these videos that I create on UGC, I don't have to make these videos and put them on my social media platforms. Game changer. Although I hate that damn word, game changer. But yeah, I had to make videos that I was not sharing on my platform. I had to make the videos and turn them into the brand, and the brands use them for their social media platforms. They use them on their website. They use them for their content. They use them to run ads. So if you notice that you're seeing all of these ads, going up and down Facebook, Instagram, any of those social media platforms, if you notice that you're seeing all of those ads are UGC, meaning the brands hired that person in that video to make that content for them. Okay. So that's what stood out quickly for me when I noticed that I was able to take my same skills that I learned on TikTok Shop and apply it to UGC. With TikTok Shop, you have to make the videos and put them on your put them on your TikTok page and attach a link to it from the product. And people buy off of that link. They buy off of that video, and you get a commission. Some of them are very nice commissions. Versus UGC, you're making the content and you're sending it over to the brand, and they're putting it on their social media platforms. You're not putting it on yours, and you get a flat fee. They pay you for the content. And that's it. And you get to do that over and over and over and over and over again, like I did. And I'm just racking up flat fees. It got to the point where as though I was doing so much UGC, my email was literally getting flooded, because now I have an email that's dedicated strictly for just UGC, so that way when the brands reach out to me, because I have that email address plugged in all of my profiles on all of my social media platforms, and I have the brands, they go to that email, child, I get 10, 15, sometimes 20 plus emails a damn day from brands that say, hey, Sin, we seen your video, on such and such. We love what you're doing. We want to know if you can make a video for us. And of course you'll have your rate card of what you charge, what you're going to charge, for those videos. But UGC will get flooded so fast and so quick in your emails to the point where as though you're not going to be able to keep up. I just had a member contact me a few days ago, a member from my community. My community is Monetize with UGC, where I teach you how to do all of this. She reached out to me on my cell because she has my personal phone number. I do not give out my personal phone number in the goddamn community, okay? She already had my personal phone number. So she reached out to me and she called me. She said, bitch. When she said that, I already knew where she was going at with it. I said, girl, I already know what you're about to tell me. She was like, what the fuck I'm about to say? What I'm about to tell you that? I was like, you about to tell me that you got your first few UGC jobs and now you're feeling overwhelmed because you've already completed some UGC, for other brands. These other now newer brand, new brands are now seeing you, and now your emails are getting flooded with UGC jobs and you can't keep up with the demand. She was like, girl, I was like, I told you. I said, did I or did I not tell you this shit? This is how it works. Like, it happens fast. UGC is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it's only going to keep growing because it's still very new. Will it ever become oversaturated? Like I was telling her, because she was telling me, she was like, Sen, I remember you saying to me that this area, UGC, is never going to get oversaturated. And it's not. UGC is never going to get oversaturated because the gap is so huge. It's not enough creators to brands to create that much content. So it's never going to be oversaturated. It's far too many brands. It's millions and millions, probably even billions of products in this world that brands need content on. So it's something that's never going to get oversaturated. It's never going to get oversaturated. Okay. But yeah, that's when I had say all of that to say, that's when I literally had my identity shift, with everything, knowing that I had transferable skills, that it's about experience. And I was able to literally build an income in a way that actually lasts without me burning the fuck out. Okay. So you just have to remind yourself that you have the experience, but reinvention is going to feel uncomfortable for a second because you're not used to it. But look at that part of you being uncomfortable as the universe telling you it's time to pivot. It's time to pivot. Don't worry about, I hear time and time all the time, goddamn again, that, I don't want to do I don't want to show my face and I'm nervous to do content. And I get it. Content creation is not for everybody. Everybody is not going to want to do this. I can't tell you how many people I tell every single day, like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you not doing content around this? Why are you posting on social media for free? Like, You showing up on social media any goddamn way. Start making this a goddamn job. Like, and people say that this is a side hustle, baby. Nothing about making 6 figures a year is a side hustle, baby. This content creation is a fucking business. And if you look at it as a business, it's going to pay you like a business. If you look at it as a hobby, then it's going to pay you like a hobby, i.e. a damn side hustle. You know, I treat content creation, UGC, TikTok shop, me monetizing, you know, on all of my platforms. It's not a side hustle. It's a business for me. And it's a business that's paying me very, very well. It's a business that's paying me, if I'm being completely honest, it's a business that's paying me more than my bakery was paying me. You know what I mean? And like I said, I'm only in year 1. Well, I just already passed year 1 because like I said, I started in September of 2024. We're now in January of 2026. I have all of my years of experience from me being a business owner, and I was able to transfer it over to this new stream, you know, this new stream of income. And it has already paid me very handsomely, if I might say, you know, it's already paid me very handsomely, you know, in my first year. Buyers are buyers, whether they're buying cupcakes or whether they're buying a product, you know, off of your product link, or whether a brand is buying your likeness, buying your face, buying your voice. Those are all assets, okay? And do not, by no means, you know, treat them lightly. You know, don't let these brands, you know, sucker you in as if, you know, they're doing you a favor. Baby, it's attention versus intention, okay? Pick up what I'm putting down, goddammit. It is attention versus intention. You know what I mean? So don't let these brands sit up there and sucker you into making them feel like they doing you a fucking favor and they not. Oh yeah, I'm gonna give you $50, you know, to create this piece of content for bullshit. And not when you're going to be using this daggone piece of content all over your goddamn social media presence, you know, your websites and all the things. And you're going to be making thousands, in some cases, hundreds of thousands off of my damn voice, off of my damn face, off of my damn likeness. And you want to give me $50? Yeah, I know you fucking like, no. Absolutely not. Okay. So yeah, so you guys don't be afraid, you know, to start over. Don't chase trends. You definitely don't want to chase trends. Be your own person. You know, make sure you have systems in place, because systems, they absolutely matters. You know what I mean? That consistency is going to start compounding. It's going to seem and sound quiet, you know, in the beginning, but trust and believe it's not going to always be that way. It took me 7 months, and I have to tell you guys, this was not an overnight success by no stretch of the goddamn imagination. It was no overnight success. It took me 7 months before I started. Let me see what. Started in September, October, November, December, January, February. 6 months. It took me 6 months until I hit my first 5-figure month. It took me 6 months to get there. You know, consistency beats perfection every single time. So don't keep telling yourself you're going to wait, because we are not promised tomorrow. We're not even promised the next 10 minutes of your life. So what exactly are you waiting for? You know what I mean? And I tell people that, you know, all the time, you know what I mean? And don't try to do shortcuts to try to get there even faster, because that's what's going to cause your ass to burn out super quick, because you chasing shortcuts instead of chasing damn systems. I'm telling you, if you have systems in place, watch that consistency start compounding for you in ways beyond, you know, your wildest dreams. And you have to trust those long-term plays, like I said, because it took me literally 6 months to get where I am today. Okay. All right, y'all. If this episode resonated, that tells me something. Y'all ass was listening. You're not just consuming content. Y'all thinking now. Everything that I share here comes from my lived experiences, both offline and online. And my goal is to help you shorten your learning curve without y'all chasing all this damn hype. Okay. If you want deeper support, structure, or community while you build, I'm going to always leave the resources down inside of my show notes. But most importantly, I want y'all to keep showing up, keep applying, and trust with compounds. Make sure you're subscribed to Experience Over Hype, and I'll meet y'all in the next episode. Talk to y'all soon. Love y'all. Bye.